looking at what we are discussing this evening, we are talking about two of Kenya's statesmen, right? The only living former president of the Republic of Kenya and the only living current president of the Republic of Kenya.
Right.
Two of them at that topmost level of our republic.
Right.
And you see as part of this nature. Current president addresses crowds and he talks about, he refers to the current leaders of Azimio. Says your sons are doing this and the other. If your family is not doing this, then if your family is not joining the Maandamano, then you're playing the people.
Right.
While at the same time, his lieutenants, even those that sit in the National Security Council as him, say that the former president is involved in some mischievous activities in the country. That is the president.
Right.
The former president, on the other hand, remains quiet, but what we are hearing from the National Security Council is that he's involved. He comes out, excuse me, the day before yesterday, and he says what he said. These are two leaders, like you've said, who can talk to one another. This is somebody who just 6 months ago was chair of the National Security Council. This is somebody who is presently chair of the National Security Council. Of course, they know the kind of intelligence that's being shared.
Correct.
And they know all these matters.
Right.
Is this good for our democracy?
And that's what I'm telling you, Eric. For you to accept the times we are in right now, you must also look back to how we got here. And that's why I'm saying it's very relevant. It's very relevant that this information that we know, me and you, it actually needs to be dissected a little bit to question.
Eric.
Why are we here? Just 1 minute. It needs to be questioned why we are here. Remember, in February, there are things that happened that I also questioned. Not because it would suggest that the former president does not have his rights, no. But when they came from, and I apologize to bring this story back, when they came in February, when they came from the barrio of the former Cabinet Secretary for Education, Magoha, he was in the same campaign. I mean, if you remember the story of Alikuwa juu ya lori, yeah? He said some things which I thought, as a former president, you do not need to say that. Not because you do not have a right to say them, but they just don't look good, Eric. All right? You actually can break the tapes of former presidents. When they were leaving office, the best you could do is say, my friend, I'll be here for you if you ever need any advice or assistance. And you would say, thank you for giving me this amazing job of peace envoy. And, like I said, if you ever need me, I'll show up.
Okay, it's coming, right?
What Gabriel is not telling us, because I think he is being extremely diplomatic and analytically economical with his words. Why do I say this? Why does it have to be the former president making the phone call to the president? And because of the degree of narration that you have given to all of us, including our viewers, around how they relate, I would also expect that the president, having been briefed through NSAC, because, by the way, the kind of people we hear talking about these issues are not even NSAC members. Because we know who sits at the National Security Advisory Council chaired by the president. The people we hear talking about these stories, maybe they hear them from people who sit there. But I would have expected from the narration that you're giving us that the president, having been briefed, would also be magnanimous enough, because you said that, to reach out to the former president and say, Your Excellency, my friend, I have a report here and it doesn't look very good on you. Then you'll be like, oh, what's happening? Oh, your son is suspected, or allegations have it that 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. So what we want to do is to send our men and women to go and search. Okay? Because the narration that Gabriel is giving us is one-sided. It doesn't have to be. And especially because this is President Uhuru Kenyatta, former, with the extended admiration of what he thinks the president can be able to do, that is President William Ruto, having extended that olive branch to also allow him to be a special envoy, why not also reach out to the former president and say, this report does not look very good on you. And in fact, even the security that your mother has, we want to withdraw them. Because you are saying that you heard that they were withdrawn and redeployed somewhere, then they were taken back. How come that conversation between these two good men did not take place? That the president would be very magnanimous to also take his phone or even send, because the president is a very busy person representing Kevin Osido and everyone else. Yeah, he's very busy with so many important other equally important things. Why not also extend that olive branch? So I think for me, these issues are not new. The former president and the president, who was his deputy, have had very not very rosy relations in the past. But I think, and in fact I believe, that at the level of the presidency, there are things that you let go. Or you get some Mr. Fix-Its. All these presidents we are talking about had Mr. Fix-Its, that a lot of times we didn't even know what they were fixing until when either they pass on, so they are telling us stories, or they have written very good books which we are reading, and they tell us about what they used to fix at the point of the launches.
Mr. Fix-It.
Exactly.
So what do you want?
So are you advising the current president or the former president?
So what I am asking the president to do is to extend the olive branch magnanimously, not to show us that there are continued conflicts of him having been a deputy and the narration around how he was treated when he was a deputy president. We all know. Maybe there are things that we know because they told us about them. Their family members have shared with our friends who have also shared with us. So at least we have an extension of knowledge of what they went through. But when you are His Excellency the President, Your Excellency, sir, there are things that you don't continuously brush on rather in
so what you're saying
rallies.
is that he should stop living in the past.
You behave presidential. And beyond that, then you also have people who can, if the president cannot be reached, you send a Mr. Fix-It and say, Your Excellency, sir, the president is looking for you. Please pick your phone, speak to the president. Before we hear these things happening. And I think it's not just at the level of the presidency. If you hear what the senator is talking about, which I think is called the advisory of former presidents in certain jurisdictions like the US, this is purely how they engage. They don't go to radio stations, TV stations and say, oh, we have seen you have signed something, which in fact, if I was president, I would never have signed it. They have a way of very quietly navigating around it. And if they are very far away, they reach out to people in their offices and they say, I am sending so-and-so with a brown envelope, not with money envelope, but with a message or a white envelope, written urgent, please kindly ensure that the president himself or herself opens that envelope, and then the message is there. It's never dramatic like what we see in our country, Kenya.
But maybe it's because we lack institutions. But come in, Senator.
Eric, and it's very unfortunate that we actually seated here discussing a former head of state. And in as much as you would want to say, like, President Ruto being the one in charge now should reach out, but former President Uhuru Kenyatta has not conducted himself in a manner that doesn't have him run in some of these conversations we are having now. Can you imagine, after the search was conducted, several guns were actually acquired, were actually collected from the home. Can you imagine if the other 50 million Kenyans also acquired 3 each? We would be having 150 million guns,
but they
and
were
this
licensed.
would be a failed state.
Licenses in board.
They were licensed. These were not illegal firearms.
Thing,
These were
Eric,
firearms that were
Eric,
licensed by the government.
We saw President Moi supported Kibaki, former president, the late. His own candidate, Uhuru, Dean Twin, became leader of opposition. But we didn't see President Moi call press conferences calling out Kibaki. He let him lead, you know. But what we are seeing now, we are seeing a former president who has now decided to engage in local politics instead of assuming the other role that former heads of state assume across the globe, and or even learn from other eminent persons. So if you decide to engage in such local politics, be sure that whatever you are looking for will catch up with you.
Senator,
President.
Let's be fair in the chronology of events. Okay, the former president